Hi everybody, it's Brooke from Quagensia, and in this video I will show you how to add an ATR-based trailing stop to the WinBar update section of a pre-existing point-and-click strategy for NinjaTrader without code in Quagensia N Edition. We will start with a copy of this strategy called Bollinger Bands Long Entry on Breakout Above Upper Band, and then simply copy and paste the trailing stop logic from this strategy called Bollinger Bands Long Entry on Breakout Above Upper Band with ATR-Based Trailing Stop, instead of actually building the set trailing stop logic by pointing and clicking. As a general rule, you should rarely start with an empty strategy in Quagensia N Edition by clicking this button and choosing Create New Quagensia N Edition Strategy, and then pointing and clicking to build your logic. Instead, you should usually click on one of the built-in strategies or one of your strategies in your MyAlgos folder, and when you click on them, choose Create New Strategy from copy of this strategy to start with a strategy that is close in logic to the strategy you want to build. Then, to save even more time, copy and paste logic from other strategies into the strategy you just copied to get even closer to the final strategy you are attempting to build. Only then, after you have copied a strategy by clicking the Create New Strategy from copy of this strategy, and after you have copied and pasted logic from other strategies into the copy of that strategy, should you then go and point and click to add the last bit of logic that you can't copy and paste from anywhere else. So let's see how quickly we can create a new strategy from a copy of a pre-existing strategy and then add an ATR-based trailing stop to its WinBar update section. Let's go ahead and create a copy of this strategy called Bollinger Bands Long Entry on Breakout Above Upper Band by clicking on it and choosing Create New Strategy from copy of this strategy. Let's give our strategy a name. We'll say My Bollinger Bands Long Entry on Breakout Above Upper Band. We'll say with ATR-based trail stop. And then for its name on disk and its name in NinjaTrader, let's say My Bull Band LE on BO above upper band. We'll say with ATR trail stop. Before we copy and paste the trailing stop logic over, let's go ahead and scroll down and take a look at the logic of the strategy we just copied. So it's a Bollinger Band strategy, so we have two input parameters. We have a Bollinger Band period that defaults to 26, and we have a Bollinger Band number of standard deviations, which defaults to 2. In the internal variables section of our copied strategy, we have a Bollinger Bands indicator. The input is the close price. It uses the input parameter called Bull Band number of standard deviations for its standard deviations, and it uses the input parameter called Bull Band period for its period. And we have plotted the upper, middle, and lower bands of the Bollinger Bands indicator with these colors. And that's the end of the internal variables section. In the WinBar update section, if we are flat, and if the close crosses above the upper band of the Bollinger Bands indicator while the close price is going up, then we're going to enter a long position using a market order, print something to the output window, and then set a background color. And if we are in a long position and the close price crosses below the middle line of the Bollinger Bands indicator, we will exit the entire long position using a market order, we will print something to the output window, and we will set a background color of the chart. So let's go ahead and add the trailing stop logic to the right place. So here's the WinBar update section, and here's the entry logic and the enter long position using a market order action, and it is directly before this enter long position using a market order action that we want to place the trailing stop logic so that the trailing stop will be submitted to the market as soon as possible after the entry order is filled. So let's go find the ATR-based trailing stop logic. It's in this strategy called Bollinger Bands Long Entry on Breakout Above Upper Band with ATR-Based Trailing Stop. Let's go ahead and open it by clicking on it and choosing View Strategy. And now let's scroll down and see what logic has to be copied over with copy and paste. So first of all, in the input parameters section, there are two additional input parameters. One is called Use Trailing Stop, and one is called Trailing Stop Number of 14-day ATRs. In the internal variables section, there is an additional indicator, which is an average true range indicator, and it is plotted lime green. And finally, in the WinBar Update section, here's the entry logic. And before I scroll down, I will make some more space by moving the splitter bar over. And then scrolling down, we have the if use trailing stop input parameter is set to true, then set a trailing stop based on a number of ATRs, and we'll convert the points to ticks because we're using calculation mode of ticks. And then we're going to draw some text on the chart on the entry bar 1% above the high of the entry bar that will say trail stop in points, and then it will show the number of points for the trailing stop. And then here's the enter long position using a market order. We don't want to copy that. We already have one of those. So let's go ahead and go back up to if the following condition is true. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy and paste this entire if the following is true, which includes the trailing stop, by clicking on the gear icon here and choosing copy. And here's a neat thing. When we paste in our strategy, you're going to notice not only does it copy all of this logic so we don't have to build it painstakingly by pointing and clicking, but it will also copy over the ATR indicator, and it will copy over the input parameters because they are used in the logic we just copied. So let's see how that works. So back to our strategy. Here is our enter long position using a market order. To paste, let's click on this action, and there are choices. If you paste, you will paste over it and delete the enter long position using a market order. We want to paste before me, which will leave the enter long position using a market order action intact and paste the trailing stop logic above it. Let's click it. That's it. So here's our WinBar updates, here's our entry logic, here's the if use trailing stop, then set a trailing stop and print something 1% above the high of the entry bar. And then here is our enter long position. So we now have a trailing stop that will be ready to go when our entry order is filled. And let's scroll up and see what happened in the input parameters section of our strategy. So here's the input parameters section of our strategy, and sure enough, use trailing stop and trailing stop number of 14-day ATRs was copied over. Furthermore, in the internal variable section, the 14-day ATR for trailing stop internal variable, which is an average true range indicator, was copied over as well. So we are now ready to save our strategy that we copied initially from another strategy and then copied and pasted the trailing stop logic. So let's go ahead and save it by clicking this button. And my bull band, okay, yep, that's us. We're going to save it to the My Algos folder. And let's go ahead and move this splitter bar back over here again so we can see our My Algos folder. There it is, the My Algos folder, and sure enough, we just saved our strategy called My Bollinger Bands Long Entry on Breakout Above Upper Band with ATR-Based Trail Stop to our My Algos folder. I'm going to go ahead and move the splitter bar over to the far left again so we have more room because I want to compare the two strategies side by side. So I'm going to go ahead and move the strategy we copied from over to the right by clicking on its gear icon and choosing Move this Algos tab to the tab group in column 2 of the upper row. So now we have the strategy we copied the ATR-based trailing stop from on the right, and we have our strategy that we created on the left. When you copy logic from one strategy to another, the input parameters and internal variables used by the logic get copied over, but none of the fields in the strategy summary get copied over, and none of the fields in the strategy details section get copied over either. And that's a good thing, because you may have set your strategy details fields to values that you want and not the values from the strategy you copied from. Two fields in the strategy details section that are important for trailing stops are the calculate field and the stop and target handling field. To learn more about how these fields impact your trailing stops, you can go to the Set Trail Stop help page on the NinjaTrader website by putting your mouse over the Set Trailing Stop for Entire Position action in your strategy and press either F1 or FN F1 depending on your computer. For me it's F1. I'll press it now. Yes, I'll open the web page, and there it is. So this is the Set Trail Stop help document on the NinjaTrader website, and the Set Trail Stop function is the function that Quagensia N Edition uses when you use the Set Trailing Stop action. It is highly advised that before you use any function like the Set Trailing Stop function in Quagensia N Edition that may submit orders to the market, that you read the help page for that Quagensia N Edition function by putting your mouse pointer over the function and pressing F1 or FN F1, and then reading the help page on the NinjaTrader website. So in this case, for Set Trail Stop, it has important notes and warnings and tips. Two that I will point out now that relate to the strategy details section fields we were just looking at are this one that says trail stop orders are modified based on the strategy's calculate settings. In the case of calculate on bar close, when the bar closes, the trail stop order modification will occur using the lowest highest price of the bar as the reference price to apply the trail offset. So that was the drop down list here, where you can choose options like on bar close or on each tick to determine how frequently you want your trailing stop to be recalculated. So back to the NinjaTrader help page. I want to draw your attention to this item, which says a strategy will either generate a trail stop order for each partial fill of an entry order or one order for all fills. And that is influenced by this field called stop and target handling, whose options include per entry execution, and there's a note here in the drop-down list, ignored by some brokers and when calculation mode is currency. And the other option is per strategy position. So as we can see here, the strategy we copied from used a stop and target handling of per strategy position, and the strategy we copied into used a value of per entry execution. So for the purposes of this video, I think I'll just leave our stop and target handling as per entry execution, but I do recommend that you read the NinjaTrader help page on Set Trail Stop and make your own decision. So I'll go ahead and close out the context-sensitive help panel, and I will move the right pane over to make more room. And I'll scroll down to the trailing stop logic that we added to the one bar update section of our strategy. And we are now ready to send our strategy to NinjaTrader. So let's go ahead and open NinjaTrader. And I already did that. And let's make sure I've connected to the Kinetic end of day free market data feed. And I have. And the other thing we have to do before we send our code to NinjaTrader is to open the NinjaScript editor so that when we send our strategy to NinjaTrader, it will be automatically compiled and be ready to be back-tested and optimized and used on live charts. So let's go ahead and click the Generate Code and Copy Code File to NinjaTrader Strategy Code Folder button. And in a second, we will hear the sound of success. There it was. Because the NinjaScript editor was open, it automatically compiled our strategy and it's ready to be back-tested. So let's go ahead and open the Strategy Analyzer, which is NinjaTrader's backtester. And there is our strategy that we created, Q, my bull band LE on BO above upper band with ATR trail stop. And here we see our input parameter called use trailing stop. If we check it, we will have trailing stops. If we uncheck it, we will not. And we're using a trailing stop number of 14-day ATRs of 2. So the trailing stop will be 2 times the value of the ATR indicator, and Bollinger Band period of 26, and a Bollinger Band number of standard deviations of 2 by default. So let's go ahead and run a back test. I will back test the symbol GLD, daily bars, and let's go back about 18 years to 2005. Everything else looks good. The slippage is set to 2 ticks. Let's run a back test. So with the trailing stops, the profit factor was 1.94. And let's look at a chart. Great. So what I can see is, first of all, here is our Bollinger Bands indicator with the upper, middle, and lower band. Here is the ATR indicator that was used in the calculation for our trailing stop distance. Its calculation is the trailing stop number of 14-day ATRs, input parameter, multiplied by the current value of the 14-day ATR, divided by the tick size in points per tick size. It's the same thing as multiplying this number of points by tick size per points. So the points per tick size for a US stock is 0.01 or 1 penny, because there are 100 ticks in 1 point. So let's say that we had a multiplication here, or a product of 2. If you took 2 and you divided by 0.01, it's the same thing as multiplying by 100. So if you had 2 points, a 2-point trailing stop, multiplied by 100 ticks per point, or divided by 0.01 points per tick, you'd have 200 ticks for your trailing stop distance. So that's how this calculation works. Back in NinjaTrader, let's look at our trades. So this light blue background is on the signal bar. We can see that the close price closed above the upper band of the Bollinger Bands indicator on this bar. So a market order was filled on the open of the next bar in the back test. And this last trade here, right away we can see how a trailing stop can help us. So instead of exiting when the close price crosses below the middle band of the Bollinger Band indicator here, so it would cross below here and then would be filled on the open of this little green bar. Instead, we had a trailing stop that was a trailing stop number of 14-day ATRs of 2 multiplied by the value of the ATR indicator here. And it was that many ticks below our high water mark of our trade. And it got filled here instead of being filled down about here. So the very last trade on the chart shows how a trailing stop can help us. Looking at more trades. In this one, the trailing stop was almost coincident with the breach below the middle band. The breach below would have actually filled a little worse down here because we breach, and then a market order would have been submitted and filled on the open of the next bar about here. So let's go ahead and find an example of a trade where we made money. So here's a good example. So in this case, the close crosses above the upper band of the Bollinger Bands indicator, so we enter on the bar after the signal bar, and then we are immediately in the money, and this large down bar breached our trailing stop, and you can see that it says trail stop there. Trailing stops have an order signal name of trail stop, and this saved us from exiting on this second red bar below the middle band of the Bollinger Bands indicator, so we were able to lock in more of our profits. Let's go ahead and take one last look at the summary report. So just remember this number, profit factor of 1.94 for our strategy when we use trailing stops. Let's go ahead and rerun the back test, but this time let's uncheck the checkbox next to use trailing stop, and let's see what happens when we do not use trailing stops. Okay, so the back test finished, and we can see that when we ran the back test without trailing stops, we had a profit factor of 1.4. So quite a bit worse than when our strategy used trailing stops. So let's go ahead and look in a chart of how our strategy looks when there are no trailing stops. So first of all, what you'll see is a lot more pink background color bars on the chart, like here and here and here, because in our strategy, if we are long and if the close crosses below the middle line of the Bollinger Bands indicator, we exit the entire position using a market order, and then we set a background color of all chart panels to pink. So that is the pink color we see here. So as you can see, no trailing stops. Every exit is due to a breach below the blue middle band of the Bollinger Bands indicator, and it had a worse profit factor. The last thing I want to do in NinjaTrader is to optimize our strategy over many combinations of our input parameters, including our use trailing stop input parameter. One of the nice things about NinjaTrader is that it allows us to optimize over Boolean true or false input parameters, not just over numeric input parameters, so that we can run half of our back tests in the optimization with trailing stops and half without trailing stops. So let's go ahead and do that. So to optimize, we will change the backtest type to optimization. And for use trailing stop, instead of having them all use trailing stops by using true or having none of them use trailing stops by using false, let's choose to optimize. So half of our backtests will use trailing stops and half will not. Let's optimize our trailing stop number of 14-day ATRs from 1 to 10, and we could optimize our Bollinger Band period from 12 to 60. And let's not optimize the Bollinger Band number of standard deviations this time. So we'll press run to run the optimization. It is running 980 backtests over 18 years of data, and it's taking about 9 or 10 seconds. And it finished. So let's take a quick look at the top 10 backtest runs of the optimization. So here they are, and it looks like the profit factors of the top 10 backtest runs ranged from 2.47 up to 2.49. And of the top 10 backtests, only the best performer used trailing stops. That's what the true is here. The next 9 did not use trailing stops, so pretty inconclusive on the use of trailing stops. The next input parameter is trailing stop number of 14-day ATRs, which is only used if the use trailing stop input parameter is set to true, so we can really only look at this top result, which used trailing stops. So it used a trailing stop number of 14-day ATRs of 3. We were using a default of 2 for our back test, so a little higher than our back tests. And then the third input parameter is bull band period, and it ranged from 54 to 57 for our top 10 backtest runs, and we were using a default of 26. So the best backtests used a much higher Bollinger Band period than our default backtests we did earlier. And then the final input parameter here is the bull band number of standard deviations, which we did not optimize in this optimization, so they're all set to 2. That's all I'm going to say about the optimization results. The purpose of this video was to show you how you can copy and paste your way to creating a new strategy with a trailing stop based on ATRs in the WinBar update section of your strategy. But what if instead of a trailing stop, you wanted to copy and paste an ATR-based stop loss to the WinBar update section of your strategy? For that, you would go to the Algo Explorer on the left of the application's main window, and you can open up this strategy called Bollinger Bands Long Entry on Breakout Above Upper Band with ATR-Based Stop Loss, and click View Strategy. And you just scroll down to the section of the logic where there's a use stop loss is equal to true, then set a stop loss based on a number of ATRs, and then you convert the points to dollars or currency, and then you convert that to the dollars or currency for the total quantity you're trading, the total number of shares or contracts. And everything's the same. You just click on the if here, copy, and then you'd paste in your strategy. And one difference between the ATR-based stop loss and ATR-based trailing stop, besides the fact that you convert points to dollars or currency for stop losses, whereas you convert points to ticks for the trailing stop, because the calculation mode is ticks, because there's no choice for currency for trailing stop. One of the differences is that for the stop loss, you actually have to set the stop and target handling to per strategy position, not per entry execution, because we are using a calculation mode of currency for our set stop loss, and currency has a warning here. It says stop and target handling must be set to per strategy position. And if you wanted to add an ATR-based profit target to the WinBar update section of a pre-existing strategy using copy and paste, you can do that by going to the Algo Explorer on the left side of the application and opening up this strategy called Bollinger Bands Long Entry on Breakout Above Upper Band with ATR-Based Profit Target, and then scrolling down to the WinBar update section, and you will see this. If the following condition is true, if use profit target input parameter is set to true because its checkbox is checked in NinjaTrader, then set a profit target based on a number of ATRs, then multiplying that number of points by the number of dollars or currency per point for a single contract or share, and then multiplying that product or that multiplication by the number of shares or contracts traded for a total number of dollars or currency for the set profit target, since we are using a calculation mode of currency. And just like for the stop loss, since we are using currency, it's important that we set the stop and target handling to per strategy position once we copy and paste the set profit target logic by clicking here and choosing copy, and then pasting into our strategy. It's important that if we were to do it to, say, the strategy we just made, we would then need to set the stop and target handling in the strategy details section to per strategy position. Now that you know how to add a single ATR-based trailing stop, stop loss, or profit target into a strategy using copy and paste, you may be wondering, well, in that case, can I add a trailing stop and a stop loss to the same strategy? Well, unfortunately, the answer to that question is no. You can copy and paste it in Quagensia N Edition, but NinjaTrader does not allow you to mix trailing stops and stop losses using their money management functions. So this first note on the Set Trail Stop help page we talked about earlier says the Set Trail Stop method cannot be used concurrently with the Set Stop Loss or Set Parabolic Stop method for the same position. There are ways to get around this challenge in Quagensia N Edition, but they really are beyond the scope of this video. I'm going to go ahead and show you some hints so you'll have an idea about what you might do. So here is our My Bollinger Bands Long Entry on Breakout Above Upper Band with ATR-Based Trail Stop strategy we created earlier. And I'm going to scroll down to the WinBar Update section so I can give you a few hints about what you might do about combining a trailing stop and a stop loss. So first of all, a trailing stop via the Set Trailing Stop for entire position in Quagensia N Edition can be used like a stop loss as well. So instead of setting a stop loss by choosing money management, stop loss, and then, set stop loss for entire position or set stop loss by entry signal name, and then also using a trailing stop by using a function like we just did, which is not allowed, you can just add a single trailing stop to your strategy, but instead of only setting it right before you submit your entry market order, you can set the trailing stop to different values on each bar or each tick. And a trailing stop is kind of like a more flexible stop loss because the first value for your trailing stop can be set to what you would want your stop loss to be. And then when your position is in profit, you can change the trailing stop calculation value here to be something different. So you could use a tighter stop loss and then a looser trailing stop, or you could use a looser stop loss and a tighter trailing stop. So that's one thing you can do, but to do that, you couldn't just use the set trailing stop one time before you enter a long position. You would need to do some if then else logic to decide when to set your trailing stop to the stop loss value and when to set it to the trailing stop value. And you can also use that same principle to make your trailing stop tighter or looser generally. Just remember that if you want to use the set trailing stop function in these more flexible and complex ways, you have to do so in the WinBar Update section of your Quagensia N Edition strategy. You cannot use the money management section because the logic in the money management section is only executed when your strategy is initialized, not on each bar close or on each tick. So if you used the money management section to add a set trailing stop, like I'll do now, you would not be able to change the calculation value based on ATRs and prices because when the strategy is initialized, it has no knowledge of the prices and indicator values on a given bar or given tick. So you will see that if you click on the calculation value of a set trailing stop function in the money management section, you will notice that there are no indicator values. The indicators would be after price data here. And for price data, there's no open, high, low, and close data like you might expect there to be in the WinBar update section. The price data is limited to price bar metadata in the money management section because these are the kinds of things you can know before the strategy encounters bar close and tick events. You can know metadata like point value and tick size for an instrument, but you can't know the open, high, low, or close or indicator values for a given bar or given tick before your strategy encounters the bar close and tick events. Whereas if you were to scroll up and here's your trailing stop here, the calculation value for the trailing stop in the WinBar update section does have access to choices like over 120 indicators you can choose from, and you can choose the current value for the indicator or previous values. And it has access to price data, including open, high, low, and close data, not just price bar metadata like point value and tick size. Before I continue, I'm going to go ahead and delete that set trailing stop function that we had added to our money management section to talk about. So now you know how you might be able to use the set trailing stop function in Quagensia N Edition to get around the challenge of NinjaTrader not allowing the set trail stop and set stop loss functions to be used in the same strategy for the same position. Quagensia N Edition supports a second workaround for this limitation in NinjaTrader by using normal exit orders instead of money management functions. So instead of using the set trailing stop as your stop loss and your trailing stop and changing the calculation value on each bar or each tick, you could use the submit and order functions. So instead of using the money management functions, such as set stop loss for entire position or set trailing stop for entire position, you could actually go to submit an order, and then let's say we're in a long strategy, so we want to exit long. We could use the exit long, exit entire position, all entries, exit entire long position using a stop order, all entries. And if you were to use if then else logic in the WinBar update section of your Quagensia N Edition strategy, you could do something similar to what we described in the previous discussion about using the set trailing stop function as both your trailing stop and your stop loss. But that is significantly beyond the scope of this video and is really only recommended for more advanced users. Now that we have an ATR-based trailing stop in the WinBar update section of our strategy, for the last part of this video, I will show you how to add an ATR-based profit target to a copy of our strategy, and then we will backtest it in NinjaTrader to see how it does. So first, let's save our strategy with the trailing stop. And we can make a copy of it by clicking this, copy algo, and choosing create new strategy from copy of this strategy. And let's say my Bollinger Bands, let's say and PT for profit target. And for the name of the strategy on disk and in NinjaTrader, we'll say with ATR trail stop, we'll say and PT. And let's go ahead and save this to our My Algos folder. So I will move the splitter bar so we can see our My Algos folder. And there it is. And let's save it. My Algos folder, great. So there it is. So we're going to copy and paste the ATR-based profit target from the strategy here called Bollinger Bands Long Entry on Breakout Above Upper Band with ATR-based profit target to the strategy we just copied and saved here. So let's go ahead and open up the strategy here, and I'll make more room by moving the splitter bar to the left. And I'm going to go ahead and I want to show you these two strategies side by side. So here's the one that has the ATR-based profit target, and I will move it to the right by clicking its gear icon here and choosing Move this Algos tab to the tab group in column 2 of the upper row. And I want to show you a few things. So first of all, in our copy that has the with ATR-based trail stop and PT that we just made, remember the stop and target handling in the strategy details section. We had talked earlier that for the profit target, we are using the calculation mode of currency down here. So here's the set profit target we're going to copy, and it uses a calculation mode of currency, and it says stop and target handling must be set to per strategy position. So we can go ahead and do that now. So in our strategy, let's go ahead and change stop and target handling to per strategy position. Okay, so the next thing to show you, scroll down. For input parameters, so here we have our use trailing stop and trailing stop number of 14-day ATRs. Over here we have use profit target and profit target number of 14-day ATRs. So when we copy and paste our set profit target over, these two input parameters will get copied automatically, which is good. Moving to the internal variables section. Now here we have a little issue to talk about. When we copy and paste the set profit target action over, if we do not change the variable name over here to match this one, then when we copy and paste the set profit target over, it will make a copy of the variable here. It will paste it over here. So we'll have a lime green ATR-14 and we'll have an aqua ATR-14. So in NinjaTrader, problem 1 is for no reason we would have this lime green ATR-14 here and then another aqua ATR-14, and we really don't need two of the same thing. If you wanted the indicators to be different, like an ATR-15 and an ATR-12, or an ATR based on something else, you could do that. But we'd only need one ATR. That's problem 1 if we were to copy and paste as is. Problem 2 is bad things can happen in NinjaTrader if you have two indicators with exactly the same indicator, the same inputs, and the same everything else. Even if the plot colors are different, you do not want to have two indicators with the exact same input parameters in the same NinjaTrader strategy. So Quagensia protects you from this in that if you accidentally have two indicators with the same input parameters, because let's say you copied and pasted the set profit target over as is, and then you'd have two of these 14 period ATRs, it will show you a validation error and it will help you through the problem. So I think the first thing we'll do is I will show you how to solve the problem if you accidentally have two indicators with the same input parameters in the same strategy, perhaps because you copied and pasted an ATR-based profit target into an ATR-based trailing stop strategy, and they both had an ATR-14. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and scroll down to the WinBar update section of the strategy that has the ATR-based profit target. And here it has, if the following condition is true, use profit target as true, then set a profit target and draw some text above the entry bar that says PT in points or profit target in points equals the number of points. So, and then we enter a long position using a market order, but we will not copy that over because we already have one of those. So let's go ahead and for the if condition, this thing here, we'll click on the gear icon and say copy. And let's go ahead and paste it into our strategy. So we'll have a profit target as well. So here's our strategy, with ATR-based trailing stop and PT. Scrolling down to our win bar update section. Here's our use trailing stop logic. We already copied and pasted. Here's our enter long position using a market order. Let's go ahead and paste the profit target logic above our enter long position using a market order action by clicking on it and choosing paste before me. Great. So now what we have is in our win bar update section, we have our use trailing stop logic, and here's our set trailing stop. We draw text 1% above the high for the trail stop. And then here's the use profit target logic we just copied and pasted with its set profit target action and its text that is drawn 1% above the high of the entry bar also, and it says PT in points or profit target in points, and then the points. Before we save our strategy and deal with the two indicators with the same input parameters, let's go ahead and change it so the profit target in points is drawn 1% above the high of the entry bar. But let's change our trail stop in points to be something other than 1% above the high of the entry bar, or else they will be drawn on top of one another and you won't be able to read either message. So let's go ahead and say 1% below the low of the entry bar for the trail stop and points text. So to change the high to the low, just click on the high, choose low, and instead of 1% above the low, let's make it 1% below the low. .99. Okay, so now we are 1% below the low of the current bar. I'll say trail stop and points. And let's change the blue to a red. And let's change the blue of the profit target and points to a green. Great. So now we will have the text that shows the profit target and points 1% above the entry bar, and the message that shows the trail stop and points 1% below the low of the entry bar. So we're going to save this strategy, and you're going to see the problem with having two indicators the same. So scrolling up, notice how in our internal variables section, because we copied and pasted the set profit target logic over and it had its own 14-day ATR for profit target, you can see here it copied over. We have a 14-day or a 14-period average true range, it's aqua. And in addition to the ATR 14 we copied over, we also still have our ATR 14 that we are using for the 14-day ATR for our trailing stop. So NinjaTrader will have a problem if we do not change this or this so that either the ATR for the profit target or the ATR for the trailing stop is a little different. So let's go ahead and just save our strategy so we can see the validation error that Quagensia N Edition helps you with to help you through this problem. So we're going to save our strategy and check it out. So it highlights both. It puts a red rectangle around both. If you put your mouse over it, it tells you what to do. And you could also see the validation error here in the validation error messages grid. And the description of the validation error goes into great detail on how you can solve this problem on your own. But since you have me here in the video, I'll just show you how to do it visually. So here we have the two indicators that should not be exactly the same. And the real fix for this is just to delete one of these indicators and then reassign the variable references in the WinBar update section, so both the set profit target action and the set trailing stop action use the same ATR-14 indicator, which makes sense. But first, I will show you how to solve the problem if there's some reason that you actually want to have two indicators that are logically the same, but whose code is a little bit different so that NinjaTrader will not have a problem with them. So the way to do that is to focus on this input. So we're going to change the input of one of the ATRs from the close to something that is logically equivalent, but whose code is different. So if you have an input of the close, so you have the close prices, if you actually took a 1 period simple moving average of the close, it's the same value as the close. The moving average going back 1 period is the value itself. So let's go ahead and change one of these closes to a simple moving average of the close, but only a 1 period one. So go to Indicators and choose Moving Averages, and Moving Average Simple SMA, and we're going to choose a 1 period moving average. So there you go. So if we save this now, the problem shown in the validation error messages will go away. Let's go ahead and save it. Great, no more error. And let's just make sure we understand why they're the same. So both are ATRs that use a 14 period value for their ATR. And then one has an input of the close, and one has an input of a simple moving average of the close. And the period on the moving average of the close is 1. So there you go. This and this are the same. So therefore, the two indicators will have the same values on each bar. It's just that now NinjaTrader will have no problem with them. So let's go ahead and send our new strategy to NinjaTrader and run a backtest of it. So let's just press the Generate Code and Copy Code File to NinjaTrader Strategy Code Folder button. And in a second, we'll hear the sound of success. There it was. So let's go ahead and backtest it in NinjaTrader. There's the optimization we did earlier. And let's change the backtest type to backtest, and the strategy to the one with the PT, with the profit target we just sent over. And there's the use profit target input parameter. It's a true-false input parameter, so we can choose to use profit targets if we have the checkbox checked, or we can uncheck the checkbox to not use profit targets. We're going to use a profit target number of 14-day ATRs of 5. And these were the two parameters that were copied over when we copied and pasted the set profit target action. And we're going to keep using trailing stop, so we'll keep that checkbox checked, and we'll use a trailing stop number of 14-day ATRs of 2. So let's see how it looks. We will run the backtest. It finished. So profit factor of 1.92. Let's take a look. So here's a chart, and right away you will see the two ATR-14s we were talking about. So one is the ATR-14 of the close, and one is the ATR-14 of the 1 period simple moving average of the close, which is the same value. So that's why they look the same. So let's take a look. So here we have the Bollinger Bands, and we have an entry here, this light blue background color, and we have this red trail stop in points, 3.17, and then PT in points, or profit target in points, 7.9. And this number is bigger than this number because the profit target number of 14-day ATRs was set to 5, and the trailing stop number of 14-day ATRs was set to 2. So this green number should be 2.5 times this number, because 5 is 2.5 times 2. So for this first trade, the close crossed above the upper band of the Bollinger Bands indicator, with the close price going up, So we entered a trade here on the next bar, and then it went against us, and we got out with a trailing stop right here. Let's see if there's an example where we have a profit target. There's one. It's kind of close together. Let's find a better one that's more further apart. Here's a good example. So for this trade, we crossed above the upper band of the Bollinger Bands indicator. We enter here, and then we're immediately in profit. And here, our profit target is hit. And if we did the math, if we compared this 180 spot 62 with 170 spot 84, we will see that it is 5 times the number of the ATR value. So there you go. So here we have a profit target that was hit. Here we have some trailing stops that are hit. So it worked. So let's go back into the Quagensia N Edition strategy, and let's get rid of one of these ATRs, because we really do not need to waste space on the chart by having two of the same exact ATR, just different colors. So back into Quagensia N Edition. So all we have to do to delete one of the ATRs down here is to delete one of them from the Quagensia N Edition strategy. And then when we do that, we will have to replace the variable references to the one we deleted to point to the ATR indicator that is still in our strategy. So I think we'll delete this one, the 14-day ATR for trailing stop, because we made it a little different by making a simple moving average of the close. So we'll delete that one. So now all we have is the 14-day ATR for profit target. Let's rename it to 14-day ATR, because it will be for the profit target and the trailing stop. Okay, so that changes the name everywhere. Let's go ahead and save our strategy and fix the missing references. So our validation errors grid here it says, okay, we'll click the variable to which this variable reference previously pointed no longer exists because we deleted it. So click it. It scrolls right to the problem place. So what we need is, for this set trailing stop, we need to set the trailing stop number of 14-day ATRs input parameter multiplied by the ATR that is still in our strategy, which is under input parameters, internal variables, and there it is, 14-day ATR. So we saved our strategy, we fixed one of the problems. But there's still one problem. It says the variable to which this variable reference previously pointed no longer exists. So we'll click on it. It scrolls right to it. And this is where we draw the trail stop in points in red on the chart. So we'll click here, and we will choose to replace item. And we will choose the 14-day ATR that's left. So that's good. So save, and let's go ahead and send it to NinjaTrader and see how it looks on a backtest chart. So I'll click the Generate Code and Copy Code File to NinjaTrader Strategy Code Folder button. And in a second, we will hear the sound of success. There it was. So back in NinjaTrader, so here's the old backtest for the strategy that had both ATRs that were the same. Let's go ahead and just rerun it. Great. So the lime green one was deleted, and now we have the aqua one. So now we're no longer wasting space with the same two ATRs. And just so you can see that nothing else broke, here we have an example of a trailing stop that got hit that we looked at a minute ago. And here is the profit target that got hit that we looked at a minute ago as well. So everything looks good, and we were able to consolidate two ATRs into one. So you now know how to change one of two identical indicators so that they can both be plotted on a chart. And I've shown you how you can consolidate two indicators with the same input parameters into one. The last thing I'll show you is how to avoid this problem altogether. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and make one more copy of the first strategy we made in the video, the one called My Bollinger Bands Long Entry on Breakout Above Upper Band with ATR-Based Trailing Stop, by clicking this button and choosing Create New Strategy from copy of this strategy. And we will rename it My Bollinger Bands Long Entry on Breakout Above Upper Band with ATR-Based Trail Stop. We'll say and PT for profit target. And we'll say easy copy paste. And then for its name on disk and a NinjaTrader, we'll call it My Bull Band, LE on BO above upper band with ATR Trail Stop, and PT. Easy CP for easy copy paste. And we will save it to our My Algos folder. And there it is. Easy copy paste. And let's get the copy of our trailing stop strategy on the left side. And let's get the profit target strategy we want to copy from on the right. So here's the with ATR-based profit target that has the profit target. And here is our strategy that will only have the trailing stop. And then there's the interlong position used in a market order, but it does not have a profit target. And up here, we're going to look at here's the 14-day ATR for trailing stop indicator. And I'm going to show you a trick now so that when you copy and paste logic that uses an indicator with the exact same input parameters, how you can merge the two indicators together and not make a copy. So here we have the 14-day ATR for trailing stop. It's a 14-period ATR. Here we have the 14-day ATR for profit target. It is also a 14-period ATR, and we know that we only need one ATR for our logic, and we only want to plot one ATR on the NinjaTrader chart. And finally, we don't want to have validation errors in Quagensia N Edition warning us that we are not supposed to have two indicators with the exact same input parameters in the same strategy. So the trick for making sure that this indicator does not copy over to here is to make sure that this internal variable name is the same as this one, just temporarily, before we copy and paste. Because when you copy and paste logic from one strategy to another, the only variables and the only input parameters that copy over are those that do not have matching variable names in the strategy you're copying into. So let's go ahead and just take this name, 14-day ATR for profit target, and just temporarily we'll change this internal variable in our strategy we want to copy the set profit target logic into. We're going to change the variable name to match this. So here we have 14-day ATR for profit target. Here we have 14-day ATR for profit target. And we should move the cursor off the text box so that the name of the variable gets committed and basically saved in memory so that the strategy over here actually knows that we changed it. So we just did that. And let's go ahead and now copy and paste the set profit target logic from here. Copy. And we will paste above this enter long position using a market order. Paste before me. And we will change we'll leave the color of the profit target and points text as blue, 1% above the high. And we will change the trail stop in points to be 1% below the low. And we will make it orange. I'm just making the colors a little different so that we can see that in the NinjaTrader chart that we actually are using the new strategy. And scrolling up, you will see that here is our internal variables section after the copy and paste operation. And we have this 14-day ATR for profit target, but notice we don't have a second variable. We just have the Bollinger Bands indicator, which we already had. But we don't have a second ATR indicator. We just have the 14-day ATR for profit target, that is lime green, and we do not have the 14-day ATR for trailing stop. Let's go ahead and change the color of this combined merged indicator to pink, hot pink. And let's change its name to be 14-day ATR because it's not just for profit target, it's also for the trailing stop. So we did it. And we're going to go ahead and save our strategy. Great. And notice how there were no validation errors in the validation errors grid, nor were there any red rectangles around indicators because we didn't have the problem of having two indicators with the exact same input parameters. So let's go ahead and send this strategy to NinjaTrader by clicking this button. And in a second, we will hear the sound of success. Great. Now let's go back to NinjaTrader and run a backtest. So here's the old one with the Aqua ATR. So we'll choose our new strategy, which is with ATR, trail stop, and PT easy CP for easy copy paste. And when we run the backtest, this ATR should become fuchsia or hot pink. Yep, here's the hot pink ATR. And we have our trailing stop in points. Here we hit the trailing stop. And here's where we hit our profit target. Everything looks good. We have an orange trail stop label and we have a blue profit target label. And that's it. In this video, we created 3 different strategies the easy way by creating a copy of a pre-existing strategy and then using copy and paste to copy logic from one strategy into another strategy. We added ATR-based trailing stops to the WinBar update section of all 3 of the strategies. In the last 2, we even added ATR-based profit targets as well. If you want to learn more about adding an ATR-based profit target to a pre-existing strategy, I recommend that you open up this strategy called Bollinger Bands Long Entry on Breakout Above Upper Band with ATR-based profit target. And clicking on the link here to open this strategy's homepage on the Quagensia website. And if you scroll down a little on its web page, you will see a link to a video that will teach you how to add an ATR-based profit target to the WinBar update section of a pre-existing strategy in Quagensia N Edition. And if you want to learn more about adding an ATR-based stop loss to the WinBar update section of a pre-existing strategy, but using point and click instead of copying and pasting, you can do that by opening this strategy called Bollinger Bands Long Entry on Breakout Above Upper Band with ATR-based stop loss, and clicking on the link here to open its web page on the Quagensia website. And if you scroll down a little, you will see a link to a detailed video that will show you how to build the ATR-based stop loss logic from scratch using point and click instead of copying and pasting the stop loss logic from another strategy. That's the end of our video. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please let us know by giving this video a like and subscribing to our channel. And if you loved it, please please consider sharing this video. Have a great day.